Hello there, thrill seekers, and welcome to another Monday Moldy Oldie. And before I get started, I want to tell you or remind you that Ziggy here has his own Instagram now called Ziggy Zen Dog, so you can go and look at that. Also, just moments ago, I put up a new article on my blog called So You Want to Be a Dharma Teacher. So go check that out. That is hardcorezen.info. Okay, for today's Monday Moldy Oldie, I'm putting up a video that I originally put up in 2017 when I was trying to do this thing called Zen Movies or something like that. I was reviewing movies that were supposedly Zen, and I reviewed the movie The Matrix, the first one. And I'm putting this up because the new Matrix movie just came out, I don't know, a month ago or something. I tried to watch it, and I was not engaged with it at all. I fell asleep and I kept waking up, and it seemed like the movie was like talk, 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 gunfight, 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 talk, 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 gunfight, gunfight, gunfight. That was my impression of it. And I would wake up for the gunfights and fall asleep during the talk. But maybe some other people liked it. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to watch it again and review it. I kind of doubt it. But anyway, since that's new and in the news, I thought I'd put up this Matrix video again, and here goes. Here was my Matrix movie review from 2017. Hello and welcome to Zen Movies with Brad. Yeah, this is a new thing I'm going to try out. I noticed that there were a lot of YouTubers who were scientists, and they would take science fiction movies and then talk about whether the science was viable and real or not. So I thought I would take movies that people always say are Zen or Buddhism, Buddhist influenced, whatever they say about it, and look at them in terms of whether they really are or not. So today's movie, the first one we're going to do, is The Matrix. There we go. Now, The Matrix is often held up as one of the films that is most Zen or most Buddhist influenced, and you can find all sorts of web pages and cross chatter among people about this, about the fact that it's such a Zen movie. In fact, the Santa Monica Zen Center, which no longer exists, used to have a web page in which it was a whole Matrix theme, and it had the green crap Cody shit floating down, and you had to like choose the red pill or the blue pill and all that nonsense. So even Zen people, even people who know they're Zen, were trading on this idea that The Matrix was a Zen movie. So is The Matrix a movie about Zen? Well, depends. I can certainly say that the people who made it, the Wachowski brothers as they were known then, I guess they're the Wachowski sisters now, they definitely read some Zen. But it's difficult to tell what sort of Zen they read. For example, the DVD or Blu-ray that I have of The Matrix has 4 commentaries, and then you'll see one of the commentaries is by philosophers, Dr. Cornel West and Ken Wilber. So we got bad news right there if they're philosophy commentators, Ken Wilber. So what I can assume from the fact that they got Ken Wilber to do the commentary is that is where they're getting their information about Zen, is from Ken Wilber and the likes of Ken Wilber. So probably not your best source for information about Zen. I could go on a little tirade about Ken Wilber. He seems like one of these guys who's definitely got some kind of insight, but the insight is now in the service of this sort of massive ego structure that has turned it into kind of like, look at me, I've got insight. At which point the original insight becomes almost worthless. So I can't get too excited about Ken Wilber or the stuff that he says. So I'm a little dubious that the philosopher they got to comment on this, one of them is Ken Wilber. I don't know who the other guy is. As to whether The Matrix is Zen or not, or Buddhist or not, I think the main reasons people point to it as being Zen are the kind of overall structure of the film and what it's about, and certain lines that come within it. There's a lot of very obvious sort of dialogue where they're just throwing all these philosophical things at the audience. In the overall narrative, the narrative seems to be that this world we're living in is false, and knowledge of the falseness of this world can be awakened. Once we awaken knowledge of this false world, we will have kind of infinite power within it. This is a kind of a fantasy that a lot of people who get into meditation in the West have. I'll even admit that I had it when I first started, that I was going to develop some kind of knowledge, and then that knowledge would grant me power, with which I would be able now to manipulate the world. The Secret is another example of this kind of fantasy. You know, the Secret teaches you that if you know the secret, then you'll be able to get what you want and have what you want and all that stuff. Now, is that true or not? From my own experience, I would say, is that a good answer? To an extent, there is something to be said for that, but it doesn't go the direction that people like the makers of The Matrix and people like the writers of The Secret or Ken Wilber or a lot of other people say it does. But saying that it works that way makes you a lot of money. And because it's a sellable thing, it gets repeated over and over and over. So that you kind of got to watch that just in life in general. Any sort of information or meme, if you will, that sells will get repeated over and over, and then we'll get people looking for evidence to support it, and then you'll start seeing things which will put that evidence forth for you, and then it just kind of spirals on like that, and it becomes something that people eventually start to believe in, even if it's total bullshit. Now, in my own life, in my own practice, there does seem to have been a threshold that was crossed, in which I realized I had more agency in this life than I had previously suspected I did. And once I understood that, I was able to do certain things that I had thought were impossible. Now, these don't include flying or dodging bullets or any of that kind of shit, but I managed to get a job in Japan. I managed to go work for Tsuburaya Productions. I managed to get a book deal, a lot of these things. And I think somewhere in the reasons I was able to do that were the practice that I'd done. The practice sort of gave me a different perspective on the world I was living in and what could be done there. Now, having said that, every cause has an effect. Dogen always said, deep belief in cause and effect. So Zen teachers, quite contrary to what you see in The Matrix, would not advise their students to go out and develop a power that would allow them to manipulate the world to their liking, and go shoot all the bad guys with guns. This movie is incredibly violent. I'd forgotten how violent it is, and he's just slaughtering people all over the place. They wouldn't advise that. In fact, they go quite the opposite. They end up shaving their heads and wearing these clothes that make them all look the same, and getting into a very structured lifestyle in which they're actually doing the opposite of what they do in The Matrix. They are trying not to manipulate the world. They're trying to allow the things that naturally occur to unfold as they will without putting their stuff on it. And you'll notice, if you read a lot of the Zen literature, Dogen is particularly big on this. He'll caution his students against aiming at getting fame and gain, fame and profit. Sometimes it's put that way. And it occurred to me while watching this film that maybe one of the reasons Dogen did that is not exactly one of the reasons one might tend to expect. You tend to expect that the reason a Buddhist master would caution people against fame and gain is because, I don't know, fame is bad and having a lot of money is somehow a bad thing. Because we come from a Christian background, and they're kind of Jesus was a bit anti-capitalist, which I don't think is something necessarily in his favor. I mean, we could talk about capitalism and its benefits and costs, but it became a problem for Christianity that Jesus was such an anti-capitalist. So when we hear Buddhists saying things that are a little similar to that about not going for fame and profit, you think, it's like Jesus said, don't try to be a rich person. That could be part of it, but another part of it could be that as you gain understanding through your practice, you will start to realize that there is a bit of an ability that comes from that to kind of manipulate the world to your liking, because you find out that the world you're living in isn't quite what you believed it was. This is another parallel to the Matrix. It's not that you're actually a body in a vat of gel goop. Who shaves their heads, by the way? They've all got shaved heads. Who does that? But anyway, it's not that, but something much subtler, in which you realize that you've been living in this world in which you've been kind of given a framework for understanding it that is incorrect. So in that sense, the Matrix is Buddhist-ish. But it goes wrong when it says that therefore what we should do about this is go and manipulate it to our liking. The problem with that is, as an individual, no matter whether you're a master or anything else, you don't have access to the whole picture. So you don't really know what needs to happen. But you can convince yourself that you know what needs to be happening. It's not quite like that. Rather, it's the opposite. You actually pull back from that and try not to do so much of that, because you understand, you develop a humility to understand that you don't have the complete picture, and that maybe what's going on is something that needs to happen for reasons that you as an individual cannot possibly fathom. I understand that certain things that are not to my liking might be part of something larger that's going on that I don't have access to, whether you accept that or not. It's not a formula for complacency, but rather a framework that allows you to have a certain amount of humility. So yeah, while the Matrix does follow this rather Buddhist-inspired framework of moving from delusion about the world to a kind of enlightened state where you understand more about what's going on, it goes wrong in its conclusions drawn from that premise, and that's where it parts ways completely with Buddhism. So, as a Buddhist movie, I give it I'm going to have to come up with a system. I give it a partial mudra. How about that? So, not quite Buddhist, but definitely Buddhist influenced. So, If you like this, let me know, because I'm thinking about doing more of them. If there's suggestions for making this better, this Zen Movies thing better, put those in the comments below. I will read them. I don't respond to every comment, but I read all of them. So check that out and tell me what you think. And if you don't like this, tell me you don't like it, because maybe I'll just quit doing it. Maybe it's just boring. Also, my Patreon page, my blog, and all the rest of it is down below. So click, like, and subscribe, and do all that stuff. Thank you very much. See you next time.